Southwest, especially in California, to create either a nation or a province of Mexico called Aztlan, which is the historic homeland of the Aztecs. And in fact, in my novels, that Aztlan is created. I refer to the Mexicans who live in California, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas, and parts of Nevada, so forth and so on, as the Aztecs to distinguish them from the normal Mexicans. But that is already well on track, and basically the Mexicans, frankly, are doing what white people need to do. And what they're doing in the Southwest, we need to do it in the Northwest. The Mexicans have, in essence, already pretty much created their Aztlan by simply going there, voting with their feet, so to speak. But the rest of the country is going to be problematic. New England has kind of become a liberal, politically correct preserve. It's where all the wealthy liberals and Jews from New York and Washington, D.C. and Boston and places like that go for that's where they've all got their summer homes, you might say. And it's a small area. A lot of people say, well, New England is still white. And I say, yeah, the liberals keep it that way because they don't want to live around the minorities, when they go to their summer homes or their weekend cottages or whatever in Vermont, etc. And the easterns, no doubt, the South again is going to be very problematic because large parts of the South are becoming Hispanified or Mexicanized, whatever you want to call it. I know in my home state of North Carolina, there is a huge Mexican population right now. I used to think the South would sort of become a black Republic of New Africa or something. Now I'm not so sure. That is where you're going to get the big conflict between the blacks and the browns is in the South. What's left of the Southern whites will probably end up having to flee to the Northwest. The Midwest is a big, huge expanse of largely white emptiness, demographically speaking. All kinds of stuff could happen out there. If you want to take a look at the way the country's dividing up, Mike, go to the Huffington Post, the liberal website, and hunt around on there and see if you can find their projected map of how the Electoral College is going to go on November the 6th. They show that the entire West Coast, including, Washington and Oregon, is blue. And then pretty much everything from there over to the East Coast itself and the industrial Midwest is red, with Florida kind of up in the air. But they show all of New England as blue, and the minority-heavy Midwest states like Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania as blue. If you look at that red state, blue state thing, you, in essence, have a good idea of the racial demographics of this country, because the blue states have all of the minority voters, especially in the big cities, that swing those states blue for the Electoral College, and that big, huge red expanse in the middle from...
Well, what they refer to as flyover country.
Yeah, exactly, flyover country. That's the way it's going to go, and what's going to happen in flyover country is going to be very, very confused, but eventually the United States will break up. 50 years from now, there's not going to be a United States of America.
Okay, well, I hear our break music coming up again, and after this...
How can I stop these annoying
selection... Good morning, and welcome back. This is Mike Harris on Republic Broadcasting Network, Studio B. Today is Monday, October 8th, 2012, and we're on with guest author Harold Covington. And once again, I recommend that everyone read his books because it really gives you some ideas as to what might possibly be lying ahead and how bad things could get if our government continues on the path that it's on. And, one of the things, Harold, that your Northwest Army up there took on is they adopted a lot of the strategies and tactics of the Irish Republican Army.
That's right.
And the Irish proved that this is a workable method in order to get an occupying force to leave the territory. And in your comment that accountants are the ones who will end the war, who will lose it for you, because you have to make it expensive for them. And you just have you've really articulated a very fictional but workable plan that's really compelling and really interesting. But right now, I want to give out the dial-in number because I think some callers are wanting to talk to you a little bit.
Okay.
I've had a couple call in already, but I've been stalling them because I wanted to give you priority. But let me give out the dial-in number. It's 877-488-5350. And once again, it's 877-488-5350. And go ahead, I interrupted you. You were going to make a comment.
No, I was just going to say that the Irish won their War of Independence in the 1920s through the methods that I have described in my novels. A lot of people say, well, Harold, the IRA in the 1980s and 1990s didn't win. They were forced into the Good Friday Agreement, etc., etc. Well, yes and no. In a way, the IRA did win because they simply survived and they were able, in essence, to shoot their way to the table. Right now, you've got your IRA leaders like Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness who are sitting in the legislatures right now. In essence, they were able to fight a major Western democracy to a standstill. It took them 30 years to do it. But although the IRA did not get their, United Socialist Ireland that they were after, the fact is they're still around after 30 years of the British attempting to crush them. You might say that they're these leprechauns who went 12 rounds with Godzilla and they're still on their feet. So I consider the second IRA campaign, from 69 until about 98, to be a draw, put it that way. And the reason it was a draw was because, and this is something we're going to have to watch out for in this country, the reason it was a draw was because their leadership became corrupt and was bought off. Basically, Jerry Adams and McGuinness and the others sold out their lifelong cause for government salaries and government Mercedes and seats in Parliament and in the government where they can sit around talking all day and drawing a paycheck. When the time comes to negotiate our independence from the United States, we are going to have to guard against any attempt on the part of the U.S. to buy off our leadership or to bribe our leaders to betray the cause or to fob us off with some kind of white Puerto Rico. I mentioned that in my novel, A Mighty Fortress, which is about the Longview negotiations, so forth and so on. So that has always been a failing of the white man. A large reason that we have failed in a lot of what we attempt is corrupt leadership, bribable leadership that is confused. The classic example is Ian Smith and Rhodesia. But anyway, I'll go ahead and take your callers.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and welcome Dan from Missouri. And once again, the number here is 877-488-5350. That's 877-488-5350. So if you want to call in, have a question or comment for Harold, please feel free. And let's welcome Dan from Missouri. Dan, good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mike, for having Mr. Covington on this morning. I didn't realize he was out there. There's a lot I don't know, but I'm working at it. I'm definitely going to go for his books and enjoy, in a twisted sort of way, reading them, it sounds like. Also, I wanted to say I was really surprised last night. I've got one of those satellite dishes that's got free radio, free television and radio from around the world. And there was Mike Harris on Press TV.
Yes, indeed, I was. I gave an interview yesterday for Press TV, and if you recall, the topic was, what is the influence of money in this current election cycle? And, I advocated everyone to avoid the two major parties. And I'm going to come out officially today, and I'm going to endorse Merlin Miller from American Third Position, as I think he is probably the best candidate who really sticks to the American values. I was looking at Gary Johnson very carefully, but Gary is too soft on the Illegal Immigration Act and wants to offer a path to citizenship, which I outright reject for these border-jumping illegals who have invaded my country. So anyway, but do you have any questions or comments for Harold?
Well, actually, no, I don't for Harold, but I'm just engrossed in listening to you guys. There was one other little slot I wanted you to fill in for me. You mentioned a House bill that authorized FEMA to dispose of bodies. Would you mention that bill number again, and then I'll get off the air and listen to you guys?
Okay, from memory, I believe it was 16695. I'm not sure, but if you go to veteranstoday.com and look up Jim Fetzer's article of yesterday, he can give you the House bill number. Gordon Duff also has an article up today about the coming civil war and the need for FEMA to have authorization to dispose of massive casualties. And the only possible reason that FEMA would need this authorization is if they're planning on going to war with the American people.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for what you do. It's a light.
If I could interject here real quick, Dan, you say this is the first you're hearing about my books. for you and the other listeners out there who want to find out more about the Northwest Imperative, because it's not just my novels, you might check out our website at www.northwestfront.org. That's one word, Northwest Front. northwestfront.org, and you'll be able to find all kinds of information there, including a copy of the draft Constitution for the Northwest American Republic, that kind of thing.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, again. It's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for the call, and thanks for being a listener. We really like it. Let me give out the dial-in number again. It's 877-488-5350. And we had another caller, Frank, who dropped off here a minute ago, and I hope Frank go ahead and calls us back. So, Frank, if you're listening, please feel free, because we welcome the call. You're always a good caller and a good contributor to the show. But Harold, really, when it comes right down to it, what other choices do the American people have at this point in time to protect themselves, their families, their posterity? Because this country is being ripped away from the people who made it and founded it and created it to be what it is. And it's only been since the end of World War II that this downward spiral that we're on, that is continuing, has happened.
One or two pieces, as I said at the conclusion of one of my segments earlier, 50 years from now, there's not going to be a United States of America in any form that we can recognize. Now, as to what can be done, other than some form of separatism, there is no feasible plan. You can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. There is an old saying that, or any fool can turn an aquarium into fish soup, but nobody can turn the fish soup back into an aquarium, and that's what most right-wingers for the past 60, 70 years have been trying to do. They've been trying to turn the fish soup back into an aquarium, and it can't be done because the damage has already been done. There are too many non-whites in this country. There is too much corruption. There is too much moral corruption. The financial structure is a mess, so forth and so on. Most American right-wing leaders, groups, movements, etc., promise or maintain that somehow or other they can wave a magic wand and make all of the past 70 years or so just go away, and that we can kind of return to this idealized vision of our past from the 1950s, and I can remember a little bit of the 1950s, and I can tell you they were cracked up to be.